Let's start with opening NetBeans for this week. I'm gonna do a little bit of review what we did, the important parts, but I'm just gonna move forward to the new stuff. Opening NetBeans. The lights are off, right? Yeah.
And we are in week 2 package. Later on, you can have multiple packages, and in each package you can have multiple Java files. So
it's more than it's
we have
supposed
week 2, which is we have it open, ready to go. Alright, before I start,
what we're gonna do, we're gonna call these.
What package this? So what package this identifies? What package?
Alright. What happened?
This.
Alright, so we're gonna start this up by going File, New Project.
So this is the
Java application, same stuff. We call this week 3.
Internal documentation and external documentation.
So if you want to change the same location, do so. Otherwise, that's not.
So if you write something,
to finish it up,
to comment it.
We need the main for sure to start.
Guess what? It happens to me. I coded one day for
zoom in,
hours,
hold the Alt,
scroll
in. I think that's visible enough. Make this a little bit smaller.
You don't really know what you're doing, so it's always commented properly, and is important.
And that's about
Java for single line.
So we are ready to go. Couple of things we did last time. Let's say I'm defining a result. So we're gonna go integer results equals to 2, 3. We did all the arithmetics. But the things was important was when you do result plus plus, right?
Is this. So slash always
in that case, basically you do result equals to results plus 1. And we had plus plus results, which is the opposite of this. So you actually add, then you store. So we call it pre.
So back, this is a slash.
Pre and post increment.
What if I need to have multiple lines?
The difference was when I'm doing this. So that was what I did. If you recall,
star and
I did.
Press enter. You can see it opens the
results
scope here for you, and it closes automatically.
Plus plus.
For multiple
and
line commentations, you can use slash star.
Some people find this really confusing, but that could show up on your midterm somehow. So here we have 3. We increment 3, that would be 4. We are also increment here, that would be 5. We start with 5. What do I see here?
Slash to close. So what happens here is that
he says 5 and 7.
Write as much as you want between these two. If you
any other ideas?
All right, let's see what's happening.
Let's try.
Okay. So this is called a tag. Tag start with at. There's a couple of tags we're gonna learn.
Yeah, it's a sum.
There's one tag called an author tag. So you say as author. And
well, the funny part it should be. Yeah.
Later on, you're gonna see
so
the
12.
parameters.
5 plus 7.
Classes can be tagged.
12.
And such. So sometimes you have tags.
So interesting stuff, huh?
In Java, not every program
could be a
has
multiple
tags.
choice somehow.
Do it manually. Some programs need to just write what it is.
So in that case, this is already 4 or 5. You have a 5.
We called last week. The class name
and you have a 7.
The file name has to be the same, right? So you have week 2 here, and this has to be week 2. If you change that to this, it gives you this.
All right. Couple of things, other things you gotta do. Obviously, you can do this increment and decrement as well. But there's a decrementation, same stuff. I'm not gonna do that.
So this is important. We covered those last week.
So if I print result right now, what that
would
be? Just a result.
So you talk about this guy. This is a command line argument. Whatever you create and you compile,
right?
Goes through this
channel.
So let's say
I can do this.
JDK or Java Development Kit.
You can go result equals
and
to.
Yours tells you what to do. Comment.
Negative result.
Application log here.
So that's actually flipping the value.
between these
So what
scopes.
happens? Result become negative.
If you're confused with these scopes, which one is which, you just click on it and
I
tell
didn't
you
print
where
it
it
yet.
actually goes. So these two are belong to each other, and these two belong to each other. Okay, let's start. Let's see what it is.
So result become negative. So anytime you have a variables, you're gonna
use
flip it. Go with
for
negative.
the purpose of today's code.
This is the
Java is a
same.
comprehensive language program, but you also have packages that you can import.
Minus equal is
the first package. We're gonna import.
Yeah. We've gone through that last week. There's a short form of it, but yeah. No, this is just flipping it. So if it's a positive, negative is negative become positive. If you have negative 12 as a result, so right now if I do results
and scatter,
which is result in negative 7 currently, equals to negative result again.
One other thing is this is
that it go back to the 7 or positive 7.
Belt of Java. You usually need that.
Just a little bit of review of what's happening here. So let's just run it.
You're not sure which one you're gonna use.
So you go back to the 7. So you just flip it.
Include all of it. So
in Boolean world, which is true and false, you also can flip. Like true become false, false become true. You don't put negative, obviously. It's different. So let's say I'm defining something. Let's see what I should define. I can follow this properly. So let's say you define a Boolean variable, which we call a success.
Star. So what I mean by that is you can simply write this like that.
Let's call it is true.
I'm gonna keep both.
And if you print
the util
success,
you see there is a lot of them there. There's an array.
You will see
abstract, queue, all that. Right?
True here, right?
If you need all of them to flip it, just put star
or reverse it.
Basically
you do this.
So when you see you don't know or you're using multiple of it, you don't want to write 5 lines of utility. Just put star.
This exclamation mark, they call it not.
That one, just
so
hint here.
It's not true right now.
The other one I'm gonna
success
use
equals to not success, which is in this case is true become false.
From Java X.
So this is exactly work as flipping it, but it's for Boolean. We're gonna most of you guys know all those operations. We're gonna integrate it into the if statements and
when
see how that goes. So if it's true, then we just print the success again, and that becomes
option panel
false.
The Java option panel is one of those panels you've seen a lot on the website. It pops out and lets you do stuff. We're gonna cover basic Java option panel today and see how Java actually interact with user using graphical user interface menu. So these two, this is for.
So now I'm gonna talk about something. We talk about errors, right? We talk about syntax errors. We talk about logic errors. For the logic errors, you should actually catch them. So if there are any logic errors, you should have a solution for it. Otherwise, your program will kind of crash. There is a clause I'm gonna start with, call it try and catch. So the way it is like this. If you have a possibility of any sort of errors, you should catch it.
This is
so what it is, you write try and you do your, could be arithmetics or could be your logic or any kind of process you might do here. And if it's any error, it goes here and catch it.
The statement.
This is the generic
in Java
exceptions. What I mean by that is, if you don't know what kind of error gonna happen,
right?
That's what you're gonna have.
In Java, you might write
it creates an object key out of that error, so you can actually see even what it is or handle it.
So I'm gonna kind of break it down.
Let's try something basic to see how that works. We all know. Let's define 2 integer num1.
The other one you need to know before you start.
Let's set the num1 by 0 and integer num2
means they are reserved words. So if you
equals to num1.
Turning boot, that's not a good.
Sorry, num2 divide. Let's go. I don't know. 62 divided by num1. So this is a error, right? This is arithmetic errors. The numbers cannot be divided by 0. It's undefined. It's an error. Program crashes usually. It's a really basic one. Everyone's used.
Gonna start with basic.
So we're gonna kind of handle
variables. So what are options here?
Let me just print something.
All right. So what's the smallest variable in Java? Let's say byte. So the smallest variable is byte. Java requires you to declare the type of variable you use. In the afternoon, we're gonna see in Python you don't need to do that, but Java you got it. So
all right. So in that case, when you have an error, if it happens, jump to this and catches it and do whatever you tell them to do. In this case, I'm just showing that never happened. So let's see.
128. So 127.
See, you just print that one.
So this is byte, smallest.
So if you get even these numbers from the users, which is we're gonna do in a second,
it covers.
And the user inserts zeros, it caches that errors and do whatever it does. One of the things you guys gonna notice is this. So we usually do system.output println, right? This can also change to error.
Incompatible type.
What difference does it make? Basically, print this is in red.
So it can't really covers more than 120. So the max is 127.
Oh,
so you should
know
there. It's really important in Java that you don't waste memory. If you have a number you're dealing with, you should know the size of it and select your.
Apparently, we don't have any error anymore.
So what is next?
Oh yeah, the order actually. No. So what happens is it prints it in red.
So short.
The system error.
Integer coming up next.
So what if I know the error? So there's a bunch of errors you might know. In this case, this is an arithmetic exception, right? You can basically tell them.
Character, you mean?
You can have multiple cats. So you can have try this.
Talking about first like an integer form.
If you know it's a possibility of the arithmetics, you can kind of write it.
Form of variables. How about that? So be short.
Exception.
So that would be 32767.
You write arithmetic, right?
So the short.
No, it's arithmetic.
Is basically 2 bytes, which translate to up to 32767.
Here we go. So in this case,
I'm maximizing
we can
variables here. So if you put that 8, you're gonna go.
Say the
can't really handle more than that.
Arithmetic.
Alright, so now his favorite integer. So we're gonna go int. For integer, we're gonna go C.
So long story short, this is a generic. If you don't know what it is, it just tells the user that's an error, or you decide to do something you can do.
I'm not memorizing.
If you know the possibility of the errors, for in this case it's arithmetic exception, you can throw exact error to handle. There is a list of it. It comes up and we'll take care of it throughout this semester, but so far that's what it is.
The maximum. I
just want to tell you how that handles. Here we go. So this is an arithmetic exception.
And here we go.
Okay. So moving on.
What else?
So
long. Yeah.
We are going to write our first methods.
A, B, C, D.
Here we go. We are going to write our first method today as well.
The exact number of the long. So 3, 6.
So methods in Java, basically they are functions. If you're not familiar, with it. If you're not, next class we're gonna cover it. What modularization means and how you can break down the program into the different portion. So the idea is you write a method. Let me just.
Alright, 2 words. 3, 2,
9.
No. 7. No.
To modularize.
1. Alright. 2. 1.
Your program.
Search it.
Into smaller portions.
Yeah, I have this weird need sometimes to find things by myself. Here we go. 4.
Why? Because it's easier to debug.
So it's 8 bits.
Make it.
Okay. A long.
Or let's put it, you can reuse your methods.
You barely might use long.
And it is easier to debug and find.
How about the decimal forms?
Logic and syntax errors. Also nowadays everyone work in a group, so you can kind of break it down and give people to write this, write that, and you put it all together.
Now?
So we're gonna do that. We're gonna do the basic program here. We're gonna have
a little bit,
3 variables here, A, B, and C. So we're gonna get the 3 inputs from the user. A little bit of review what we did last week, and we're gonna write 2 methods. One get the sum of those numbers, and the other one gonna
4, 5, 6, 7.
Kind of.
And this is a problem.
So gonna get the average of it.
There's float and double.
Also, my intention is to write the function or method to find the biggest number that it enters.
So you're gonna force that number to be.
So this is what we're gonna do. So these are the declaration of the variable
you're gonna put F
I need before I start.
At the end of it.
So now what you do is,
this is one of the things you'll
first we're gonna use our scanner class, which we learned last week.
But so
keyboard,
in order to put it this way,
new scanner.
So float can handle
system in
accuracy. Float is up to,
if you recall, in order to use a scanner, we have to import the library, right?
Accuracy.
It tells us right here. And, it says, okay, cannot be find it. You're gonna import it. So this is add import from Java utilities scanner. So click there, and as you recall, we import it here.
Number.
If you want all the utility belts of Java, you can make that a star and get it all. But for now, we just need a scanner in order to do that.
Oh, by the way, if you see that red line, means
so java.utility or util.scan. You import that.
So if you go past that,
or you can use your NetBeans to import it for you. Click here. You can add.
So if you need to print the code later,
so we're gonna simply ask, please enter 3 integers.
Alright, so you need the F at the end of the number.
And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna grab that 3 next line.
Since I'm here, when you...
And since I know it's integer, I don't want to do the parse and converting it or anything. I can go next int. So next int, get that string converted to the integer and save it. So last week, if you recall, you can go get those information as a string. Then I converted using parse.
Integer.
There's a next integer that if it's an integer, you can right away save it as an integer. B equals to.
What I mean by that is, can I store an integer into a float type? The answer is obviously yes. The question is how. Okay, so you can use the
alright, so
exponent form.
We get our 3 inputs.
To do so.
And now,
so since I'm here, let's talk about that.
We are going to write the,
let's say if I write
method to get the sum of those 3.
Okay, let's open a section here.
How the method works? So the method has to be,
if I write 1.24,
actually outside your main, because you don't want to run it every time.
Hard to do it here.
A method is a module or a breakdown of the program. If you don't know what I'm saying, like the next class you understand it more, is basically breaks down a task.
That's not how you write that.
And it has to be outside of the main, inside of this class. So the point is here. So if you go here, that's your main start. You're not going out to stay here and write.
Let's put it this way.
Why you are not?
That is translate to.
What did I do? Oh, here we go. Delete that one.
124.
So let's start with the basic ones. So a method is kind of act like a class. You're gonna declare it is a private, is protected, is public. What is it? So let's go with the basic one. I'm gonna go public static
is 0, that means
void
the same
and
number,
name.
right?
This one just tell me my name.
4, and when you do 1.234,
I think I should go. What am I missing? Oh,
12.34, right? You're just shifting things as you go. 1.23482 would
so
be.
this is a simple method. A method has a header. In header, there's some information you have to provide. One is the type of that method. Is that public? Means everyone can access to it.
So
is that private? Is it protected? What is it? So if it's public, means everyone can access to it. Static means everyone can access to it anywhere.
1.
We go through the static deeply later. That's what it tells you. You can call it from somewhere else, not creating objects. Just using this directly.
Do not panic. If you never seen it.
Void here it
so that's what it
indicates if this method has a return or not. So in this case, we're not returning anything. We're just printing
1234.
So we said void because we're not printing it. I'm gonna do a couple of those, and you get the idea.
You have to force that to be full.
And this is the name of your method. Please select the name of the method, something that you understand what that method does. It's really crucial to select something that makes sense when you're reading it. Kind of guesstimate what this method does. And this parenthesis holds the if you have an input to that method or not. So in this case, I don't have any input, so this the inside of the parenthesis is kind of empty. Then you open your scope and you just write as many as a statement you need to get the task done. In this case, I'm just printing it.
14,
and this is outside of the method. Let's call this and try it. So I'm gonna go back here and just gonna call. So this is calling. Gonna call name. So every time you call that method, gonna go run all those statements or tasks and come back to whenever you call it. So here, when you call it, you go all the way to the top, print this line, come back here. That's the idea.
It has a class itself. So this is the object-oriented programming.
So it asks me 3 integer, go 1, 2, 3, and you see my name is shown.
And in those classes, there's different methods you can use.
So now I want to write
use one of them. But
method
in order to differentiate those, it's really simple. So for the integer,
I'm gonna call it sum with double M. There's always a function called sum in many programs, so that's what I'm gonna do.
Variable,
and I'm gonna send A, B, and C
versus
those 3 numbers to that method.
You don't understand what
and
that
the
means,
idea here is that this method kind of add them up,
right?
And return the result, and I'm gonna store that in this variable sum.
A class declaration start with capital.
So you see, it gives you this kind of error. Means if you click on it, it says create the method sum.
Because I just declare here, and if
you can create it, or we can do it manually. If you do that,
use capital. I'll show you what's the difference.
I think I did that. Here we go. It creates a method for me. But I'm not gonna do this. I'm gonna do it manually.
Long story short, you see a variable.
I'll go all the way to the top, and I'm gonna write another method for myself.
That's a class, you call it, not declaring any variables. You'll see I use a couple of.
So we're gonna make a public method, static again. This time we're returning something. We add integers, so the sum would be integer as well. We call this sum double M. So now you're gonna declare what kind of input this method has. So Java is a little bit tricky like that. In the afternoon, you're gonna learn Python doesn't need it at all, but Java does. So we're gonna say, okay, we're sending 3 integers.
Use your scientific notation, basically your E, here as well. right? So I put like e to the power of 12. So that's a big number, obviously. What makes your life easier?
What we call these, we call
type bunch of zeros. You can just go
num1, num2, and num3
this is pretty much it. There's two
local
other variables. Let's
variables.
talk about that.
Means their existence locally inside the method. So these num1, num2, and num3 are not existed outside of this method. So as far as you start this scope and you end, you will see these three. After that is gone. So you cannot access to those variables somewhere else.
If you don't know what
you see, it gives you this tiny little error. You see what it is, and you click here and it tells you add return state. That means this method has to have a return. Why? Because I indicate it has a return and its type is integer. So we're gonna add the return,
Boolean,
and we're gonna return sum.
True or false.
So inside that, we're gonna.
So you say char. Let's call this J. So in Java, in order to identify character, you're just using single quotation. So you're gonna just put that. You see the program.
There we go.
Close it.
So what I'm doing is I get this 3, and let's just follow what happens here. I'm getting these numbers from the user A, B, and C, and I send them up the function sum. Note here you don't need to declare what kind of variable you send up. So you say A, B, and C. Here you send those up, so you go to sum.
Okay, you can
use A become.
You have to.
Right. So A become number 1, B become number 2, and C become number 3.
Quotation.
Then we add those, save it as a sum. As you can see, you have a sum inside this method. Also, we have a sum
is 2 bytes.
Here, and they are mutually exclusive. This is a global variable, and that one is a local variable.
Alright.
Even though they are the same name, they are not the same. That one only exists
there is
inside this
also
method.
Something called a constant variable.
Alright, so then we get those value and just return that. What happens, you return that value, comes back here, and that value becomes replaced here and stored as some variable. Okay, so let's see if that actually works or not. Let's try it out. So you're gonna print.
You can declare like that. There's 2 rules for it. So first, you're gonna use the keyword name final. So final means nobody can change it, and so basically it's constant. And then you're gonna write the type, whatever it is. Let's go double. And now you're gonna name it. It's really customary to go and write that variable's all capital, and for the space you're using underscore or underline. What I mean by that is,
alright, I'm gonna use another method to do this. This is not really good. Instead of using Println,
to understand this is a final or constant variable is the way you write it.
Instead of Println, I'm gonna use something called a format. So system out format.
Underscore cells text.
I'm gonna go the sum of
13%. Means if you later want to call this and you want to change the value to, let's say, 0.15, you can't really do it. It gives you an error. So it tells you here, cannot assign a value to final variable. So when you define it like that, unless you go here and change it, you cannot change it.
These are two
so if you need to value that you want to change.
There we go. So instead of using Println, you can always use system out format. This lets you integrate your variables inside a string. So it's gonna be like a rainbow.
And
so you do %d for digits, %f for float, and %s for strings, and you basically replace those
print that, then we take a break
with those values.
And then continue like this. Yeah.
Let's try that out.
To the schedule.
We're gonna go 10,
maybe I can go, I don't know.
20, and 30. So this sum would be 6.
So let's print it out. So we're gonna use our shortcut S out. Sout is a shortcut. As I told you last
Okay.
week, you can use your control and spacebar to.
So now let's write another one.
You enter that, and for printing, you basically type system.
Let's call that one average.
You're gonna identify is the output. You're gonna see today that you can use system in. You're gonna have input as well. Then print line.
A better way to do
and
this,
you
but
print whatever you want. So we're gonna write the created variables are.
So that one,
right? So
what it does,
we're gonna talk about string right after that.
Do the same. This time we're gonna do the
average. You write plus. So plus is if you need to print strings and another string or variables and such, you can do it. I'm gonna do that in one shot. I'm gonna use a couple of things.
So we're returning a float, right?
\n
or the double, whatever you wanna.
New line, right? I'm writing everything in
one.
I'm printing everything in one line, but the end result should be in multiple lines. So I don't want to write print line, print line. I just want to use that to go to the next line. And I'm gonna tab it in. So I'm gonna indent it in using a little bit of space. So I'm gonna go tab. And
all right. So we know for the average we're gonna get the sum and divide it by the number of the variables. So we can manually add them up and divide, or we can use this function.
That out and see it works, and we keep going.
We'll have a return.
Because I want to copy paste, and the best way is just. All right, so we're gonna run the project. You can build and run, or you can press run. Let's build it. All right, it seems doing something here. This is one task is running. Let's run it. Here we go. It's too small. I'm gonna do the same thing. Hold the Alt. So the created value is A. 127, so that works. I'm gonna keep going. You see, I can go to the multiple lines, no problem. I can press enter, go plus. So I'm writing in multiple lines, but it still is the same command.
So what I'm doing here is this. I am using this average function or method. I'm sending those three numbers. Now inside of this method, I'm calling another method that I had before. So I don't need to add them up. I'm just using that method up here. So we send those nums to these nums on the top. They are local variables. They are mutually exclusive. Means this is existed inside of this, and this is existed inside of this method. There's a reason I'm using the same, because you guys are gonna understand the difference
for it, so you don't need to be worried about it. So you need the space, just add.
Then we send that up, get the sum, return the value, then we divide by 3. Do I missing something there? What am I missing?
\n c equals 2 plus c plus. I changed my mind by copying it. ABC,
so this is cause me an error. It doesn't cause me an error though. It doesn't give me a right result.
D.
We talked about this last week. Yeah, we're dividing an integer by integer, right? So we have to force this to be a float by adding that f. So what happens here is, when I'm getting those numbers, I get the sum. Here I'm sending A and B and C from the user all the way on the top. It comes here. So num1, num2, and num3 become A, B, and C value-wise. Then here inside this method, I'm calling another method I did earlier. So I'm sending num1, num2, and num3, which has a value A, B, and C, to set them to those num1, num2, and num3 on the top. These two are different, even though they have the same name. I can do this if that confuses you.
Last but not least, I.
So in that case, num1, which has a value of A, will be set to n1. So n1 now has the value of A. Then we're going to get the sum, return the sum where? You return whenever you actually call it. Comes back here then. then divide that by 3 floats,
J,
and you get the average. You return the average where? Whenever you call it. You call
this
it.
should be all my variables. Let's test it out.
So we set that value to the average.
Yeah.
Then we're gonna print that as well. So we're gonna add that to the print.
Alright. So
and
see, here we
the
go. This is what I did.
Average
it's not perfectly
is
aligned, right?
percentage F.
Here. Yeah, this get bigger, so space actually changed, right? Did I miss?
We can do this to print 2 decimal places for your significant digits.
Oh, I added myself. Yeah. So
all right, let's run this. 10,
yeah. So that should go there.
20, and 30. And here we go.
Like that, right?
A little bit of typo. Let's just space it out. 60. The average is 20. Let's try something else that they see everything works perfectly or not.
Thank you.
Let's go,
here we go. So
12,
the variables, printed, ready
36, and 7. Alright. 12, 36, and 7. The sum is 55, and the average is 18.30.
Take a break, it's short.
So as you can see, one of the things we're using system out format, this doesn't print it in a line. So right away, after that, you see build success.
Alright.
If you want to see it in the line, in a new line, we're going to go backslash in here.
So what is a string? It's a collection of characters, right? Could be a number, could be words, could be letters, could be anything.
Okay. Now let's find
handy because sometimes
the biggest. So the next method I'm gonna do is
and we have to
find the biggest.
We don't learn that today. So, but let's say there's 2 ways of defining string. So this is a little bit.
We kind of define the function biggest. We're gonna say A, B, and C.
Of defining.
And that define me the biggest.
And string.
So here we're gonna go through the decision structure.
So one is looks like a variable.
So when we need to decide something, we go
string,
using decision instructions.
Pay attention, I'm using capital S.
And we comprehensively gonna cover that in programming logics, but
to do this. String
I'm assuming most of you know what it is.
And you're gonna
so we wanna write the function that gives me which one of those are biggest.
And then
all the way on the top, whenever I start doing my functions here,
like that, and write your name. And
I'm simply gonna go public, static.
This is one way.
Integer, biggest.
This looks like you declare.
And we're gonna go integer num1.
That's not. So the second one is actually using the class, creating this string as an object. If you don't know what it is, we're gonna get to the objects later, but you can use string. The class is there. Let's call it name 2.
So forgot to define that.
We're gonna go new, calling the constructor string. Later on, we're gonna realize the constructor and the class has to have the same name. If you don't know what
so the question is, how do I find the biggest?
So both of them are the valid way of creating a string. Both of them works fine.
I just did.
Choose your pick. No, both of them depends. Sometimes you want to use the bottom one. Sometimes you use.
All right. So how do I find that?
So string also.
So if you have to compare, right?
Can be defined.
So we're gonna use something called a decision
as an object
structure, which is, as you might know, is if statements.
So
we're gonna use nested.
Is what's the length of
what that is basically you're gonna go if,
when to stop, or where's the end. So always you have to know the sign.
So the if statement is like this. So I'm gonna say if it accepts Boolean expression, means whatever you do, you're gonna generate either true or false. You cannot really generate arithmetics, you cannot generate anything else. Whatever condition you have, it has to be either true or false.
You can use
so in this case, I'm gonna do this. So we're gonna say if num1
length
greater than num2. So this
methods always
generates
identify with parentheses
arithmetics. Sorry, the Boolean. And
sometimes it does.
So this is a condition for having checking two conditions at the same time. You're gonna use and,
but for now,
and you're gonna use two ands in order to do that.
Integer, call it length, and in order to find, let's say, the length of a name 1.
So if num1 is greater than num2 and num1 is greater than num3,
and this is
I would say the biggest would be
corresponding to this specific string. So
num1. So we're returning num1 as the biggest. I don't need to really.
I'm gonna select that, and this actually let's
do that.
The length of this. Let's see actually work or not. So I'm gonna print it out.
Let's just do basic. So biggest equals to num1.
There. Okay, now.
Right.
The length of
what other? Else, if that's not true,
name.
If num2 greater than num1 and
print in space. So I'm gonna add the space here. Is
in that case, the biggest would be num2.
All right. Well, let's run it out. So the length of a Sonic berry is 12. So if you count it, 12 characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right. So a couple of notes I forgot to tell you. The variables cannot have any space. Obviously, we talked about it last week. And in order to use and write variables, you can use your camel case, which is
alright. So we find these in that case.
2 ways.
Is there something I'm missing?
To declare.
There's a possibility that the numbers are equal, right? So we have 3 numbers. Let's say 2 of them are equal or identical.
So let's say you want.
So we're gonna have an exception. So we have these 3 covered, 1, 2, and 3, and we're just gonna throw an else. If anything else, that's a possibility that their numbers are
just capitalize the next word
identical. So we're gonna go else.
So space it out.
Do.
The other one is you might see it in some programming languages.
We set the, let's say, biggest equal to 0.
Underscore to do that. Just wanted to clarify that. I thought everyone knows, but it's good to say. Alright, so that's it. Let's take a break. So right now is 9:20.
Something like that. And at the end, we return that biggest. So now let's go here. And we get the biggest from the top. And we check if
come back
biggest is not equal to, is a Boolean expression, so I can use that explanation mark as I taught you before. 0
and continue.
Means there is one of them bigger than the other.
Alright, so I'm gonna save this and I'm gonna pause. How do you pause? Forgot the pause. Here.
Guys, this is the second video I'm recording for you. Really quick, this is teach you how to download Raptors for creating flowcharts and using that software to actually develop your algorithm.
If there's not equal than 0, you say just
codes and
numbers.
Simply, I'm gonna go
are identical.
And open my browser as usual.
Otherwise,
I'm just gonna search
else
Raptor. Alright, Raptor. Raptor is a is a team in Toronto. We don't want that. So we're gonna do Raptor
chart.
I'm gonna include the link the description.
So 10,
below.
20, and
Here we go.
30.
So this is the right stuff.
Okay.
Go there.
That's not right, is it?
The problem with the Raptor is, here we go. That's a site. You're gonna include this address. You go all the way down and get the latest version. The latest version is really suitable.
So if the biggest is equal to 0, then you have the identical other
framework 4.5.
So that's not the right way to do it, to be honest.
And older, so we can do that. You can get older version of it.
There we go.
Previously, I have problems with the computers that there are 32.
Let's see why it's 10. It should be 30.
Download this.
Probably I did all the signs wrong.
Basically, you're gonna go get
now here, like
32 bits or so. Here we go.
Yeah,
that's a Raptor.
This is my problem.
2016. It's really simple program. Just download it right there.
So again,
and you just open it. Is all right. This is made
contain
viruses. No,
that's more like
virus there. Trust me. It's an open source software. It's a really good company. It's not a really
let's take a break.
Big company designing this.
And
really
we continue with string comparison
device. I mean the flowchart software that you can use. Here we go. You see, this is X6086, basically.
All right, so we did a bunch of methods and we got the idea what's going on with it.
Now we're gonna learn how to compare strings. Let's close the door.
Alright, so
here we go. So let's get the ask user to give us two. Please give or type two names. And since we're using that, we're just gonna go. I create keyboard object for scanner before, so I don't need to do it. So if you recall here on the top, we already have a scanner. So I'm just gonna use this again. I'm gonna go keyboard dot next. Okay, so we're gonna do this. We're gonna go string name 1 equals to keyboard dot next. So whatever comes first goes and stored in variable name 1 as a string, and second one name 2, you're gonna use the keyboard. So we're getting these two names. So let's just print those, see what happens. Alright, so let's test it out. Oh, this is the previous part, so I'm gonna just run it really quickly. Names, let's say Tony and Robert. And I'm printing both, so that's what I'm doing here. Now I want to compare these. There are two ways to compare strings. One is finding the strings are identical or not. The other one is finding which one has priority alphabetically. Alright, so we're gonna discover this too. So I am going to compare name 1 with name 2. Sometimes the order is important, especially when you want to find which one has priority alphabetically. Which one is bigger than the other, which one comes first, which one comes second. So I'm gonna call name 1, and there is an integrated method in strings called that equal. And simply what it does, it compares, so the equals method compare one string to another for identicality. What it means is it checks that here name 1 is equals to name 2. So let's test it out. And if it is, we're going to say if, note that equals basically return a Boolean output. What it is it tells you either yes or no. Therefore, we can use it in if statement really easy. You can just put it there and just generate us yes or no. That's it. Oh, you're here. I thought you were. I was looking for you. There we go. So in this case, if there are equals, they're gonna say the strings are identical, and else if it's not true, basically we are going to say the strings alright, so let's try it out, see what's happening here. I am going to run this. Alright, just skip that part. 3, 2, 3, 11. Alright, so let's say I'm comparing Sam with Tony and they are not identical. Now let's try something that actually works. Let me just comment that part that it doesn't really keep popping up. I don't want to type every time. Let's do some. What's the sum? And you see the strings are identical now. So it kind of tells you they're the same or not. Before I test more, I'm just gonna comment that part here. So I'm gonna comment this previous section that I don't need to keep running it. Let's just put it here. Okay, so if you comment that part, your keyboard is gone. So I'm gonna create the object. Okay, just gonna let me scanner keyboard. Let's call it keyboard 1 equals to new. All right. So I'm gonna make those keyboard 1 because I don't want to keep running the previous codes. That's the more efficient, save some time here. Alright, so in that case, so what happens is I type Hesam like that and type it like this. Are those identical? Yes, no, maybe? No. So this equal method basically case sensitive, right? So equal method means the capital matters. Question, let's say I don't really care about that and I want to ignore the case sensitivity, what should I do? Yeah, so you can go equal ignore case, and in that case it ignores the cases. So there's two methods of equals: equals, which is go exactly the same, and equals identical. So if you do that now, they're identical. So it ignores the case sensitivity. Okay. So in this case, they're the same. They ignore the capital one. All right. Maybe I should keep both for your future references. I'm gonna just do this, copy paste it with the. All right. So I'm gonna keep both. So this one, not case sensitive, and that one is case sensitive. All right. All right. There's another way of comparing as well. So let's move on. The second way is finding the order of those strings. What I mean by that is you can compare those. And the funny, so how you do that? You're gonna go name one, and this is really important which one you compare with what. So you compare name one with name two. You can also compare name two with name one. So comparing is important. Dot compare. Two. So what this guy's actually generate? Let's try it, learn it. Let's say I have no idea about it. The best way is just print the outputs. Or I'm just gonna compare name one with name two here, see what actually generates. All right, so let's go with just basic A and B. So we're comparing A to B, and it generates -1. Means A is before B, right? In that case, what's gonna happen if they're the same? So let me run it again. So what is A and A? Give me 0. So if it's identical, it gives me 0. If it's one before the other, it gives me -1. Let's try B and A, and it should give me positive. So we're gonna compare B and A, and give me 1. So if I do A and Z, it gave me -25. So it tells me how far from each other alphabetically, right? So now let's write it in a way that we can kind of generate something. This is not generating Boolean. So if you wanna use it in if statement or conditioning it, you're gonna do this. So you're gonna do, okay, so we're gonna do name one, compare to name two, and right away it gives me the error. What is it? It says incompatible type, integer cannot be converted to Boolean, right? So this is generate integer, and we need Boolean. So we're gonna do this that way. So we're gonna say, okay, if this number is less than 0, so now is a condition. So either give me yes or no. We are going to print number name one is less than name two, right? So it's A or before, let's say. else if it's equal to, it has to be double equal, right? Because equal means mathematically you set something to 0, but double equal means Boolean, if it is equal or not. You're going to alright, so name one is identical with name 2. And last but not least, we can just go else, but I'm gonna write it for you guys to see what it is. So name 1 is compared to name 2 is greater than 0. In that case, after, let's get rid of the then here, just before. Alright, so let's try it out. Alright, so we need a space here, forgot that. So the sum is after Adam. So A starts first, right? A, B, C, D, all the way to. So let's say this is also can be case sensitive or not. So if you do this, A and A, so the capital A is before smaller a. Let me try that. Let's do A and A. So start with the capital, lower, capital B, lower B, and so on and so forth. If you don't want that, obviously, you can do the same thing you did with equal. So there's another one called ignore case. So you can actually have the whole thing. And instead of just compare to, we can go compare to ignore case. In that case, lower A and capital A doesn't have priority over each other. That. Alright, let's just, this is really common to use when you have a password, you want to match the password with your database or something like that in Java. You can really compare that input with the password. Let's just make the example. Let's say, please enter the secret word. And let's say if, so we're gonna use our keyboard to collect that. And let's call it string input. And simply we can check, oh, there we go. And we're simply gonna do this. We're gonna say if input, let's say is a password, it's gotta be equal to, and you can even type here. You can go, let's say Shazam. with it. Okay, so if it's exactly the same, then do whatever you want to do. Just print something for now. The input is right, and else that is the wrong password, I guess. Alright, so let's try it. So this is previous, some here we go. So you see the first one gives you Hesam is before Hesam because capital H comes before lowercase, and in this case are identical. So sacred word, let's try something else. So that doesn't work. And if you try Shazam, exactly, just gonna, you can do whatever you want. I'm just printing some. Here we go. Okay. So I'm gonna cover one more thing, and basically, I'm gonna give you time to actually do your assignment. Should be in 1 hour enough to do it. We're gonna cover something called switch. Switch is like cases. Basically, who knows what switch is? Beside you. So switch helps you to not check all the conditions and just go to the specific case and apply something. Let's just show you one example and you get an idea of it if you don't know what it is already. So let's ask the user, please enter the month number from Alright, so in this case, today, let's say is month 5, which is May. So I want the user to take the month, give it to me, and I'll show them the month. So how do you do that? Instead of checking that number one by one, you're gonna use something. So let's get the input first. So I'm gonna go integer month, and we're gonna go keyboard. We're gonna use next integer because I don't want to use parse to convert it, right? So you can, if you have an integer, you can use that. Use keyboard 1. So now when I got the month, you can use something called a switch. I think I have a, wait a minute. Alright, now it's good. Am I main? Yeah. So switch is like this. Eval will start. Yeah, it's okay. So it has an input, so we send the month to it, and it checked the input against different cases. So in this case, could be 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 12. So we're gonna write all the cases, and I'll tell you what's the point of this anyway. It's way faster when you're running the program. Instead of checking all the conditions, you just go to the specific condition and just check, do whatever you need to do. So let's say the case 1, which is the user put 1 as a case, we're gonna print this is January. Case 2, I'm gonna start copy pasting along, but February. I guess I'll type it right? February. It's wrong, right? February. RY? No, wait. Like that? No. Only A? FEBRUR. February. Writing it right? God. Nice. That's what I did, right? There we go. Yeah. I have some sort of reading disorder sometimes. Good. Done. Case 3. This is January, February, March. 4. This is April. I'm gonna do a little bit of cheating. Case 5, 6, 7, 8. January, February, March, April, May, which is we are in June, July, August, September, October, November, and December. Alright, so this is all 10 cases possible for month. Okay, so there's a couple of things you're gonna consider when you're doing switch cases. Let's try this out and I'll tell you what is missing. Alright, let's get rid of that. Alright, so let's say month 5. Right? So when I put 5, you get the input 5, you get it here, and you enter 5 here, it goes to case 5 and print that. However, there's a problem. I'll show you. As you can see, from month 5, it prints all of it. So in that case, how the switch works is this. It goes to the specific case, do that, and keep going. So if you put 9, you're going to print 9, 10, 11, 12. So how do I get rid of this? Yes. So there is a reserve word called break. So we're going to add that at the end of each of these. Means when you do this, just leave the switch. Or break out, whatever you want to call it. Almost there. Okay. So in that case, oh God. All right. So let me just fix that. Yeah. Okay. So in that case, when I put 5, I just see the main. There's something else missing. and it's the case that the user put 15, right? Something off that is we don't have it. What should I do? Yeah, so we have to define something for the default cases that if the user puts something like 15, we should show something. It doesn't work when it's out of range. So all the cases is from 1 to 12, but we're going to define something called a default, which is a reserved word for this case. And we're going to actually make a system error, make it in red, and just say undefined number. So 3 points, right? So the break, you need the break. If you don't have a break, if you call case 4, you're going to print all of them after that. And what if it's out of range? It's just going to print the default. So let's try it out. Alright, so let's try something off, like 15. And it tells you undefined number in red. Because we're using system out error instead of doing that. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. Because I think I covered the chapter fully.